Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Scenes, Rungun Radio Virtual Vision. Today we are doing another Utopian Coffee tasting, virtual. Special guest Kasim, Sulton, and Bruce McDaniel. We have a lot of fans with us. Cruiser Mail is MIA. She's having a little trouble with her camera, so I'm on my own. So instead of looking at me, I'm going to go ahead and bring Nick in. Nick Brahaney from Utopian Coffee. What's happening?
Hey, not much, man. Just enjoying this like Midwestern spring weather out here. It's absolutely gorgeous right now.
It's a perfect time of the year, but even though it's warm, we're going to have some warm coffee today. So looking forward to trying that. Tell me a little bit why you picked Peruvian coffee this time around.
Yeah, so Peru is a country that not a lot of people talk about with coffee, and I have just been like really, really impressed with what's coming out of that country, with the connections we've made through Utopian Coffee, with directly with a couple farmers, and hopefully, COVID, if it's not too bad, I should be going to Peru later this year and meeting some of these farmers. So I really wanted to display their work and share just the amazing coffee that's coming out of there.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to learn what 1, 2, and 3 is, because everybody that's tasting does not know exactly which coffee they're trying. Yeah, last time we got fooled with a decaf, which, by the way, has been very popular with people who watch the show, and that they've ordered some, including me. So let's get our fan base in here. Let's start. We got a newbie. Lynn Chappelle is with us today. Lynn, where are you from? Got to unmute your mic. Unmute. Lynn's unmuted. Lynn, unmute your mic, darling.
Oh.
All right, so we'll go to Virginia.
Hi, I am visiting you from Northern Virginia today.
Northern Virginia. All right, awesome. Our first. Regina, what's going on?
Hi there. Hi. Cleveland, Ohio, representing.
Oh, there it is. One of our open mic. I won't want to say contestants because it wasn't a contest, but one of our singers for open mic.
That's right.
We have Carol once again from California, the coffee nut.
Hi.
What's up? All right. So,
yep.
Yeah, we, let's see. And then we have, what's going on with this thing? All right. So we're going to have some more guests. Let's see. All right. So let's do our special guest. We have returning this time and not in an automobile, Kasim Sulton.
Yeah. What up?
From Utopia, coincidentally.
Hi guys, how's everyone doing? Everybody safe and healthy?
Great.
Yes. Who's vaccinated?
Half.
Next week.
Yeah.
Hi Regina. Hi Carol.
Hey, Kasim.
Really good to see you guys.
Great to see you.
Carol, I'm used to seeing you in the front row dancing with your behind on. A little different.
Hopefully there'll be more of those very soon.
I think so. I really do. I really do.
Lynn, did you have a tile for the Clearly Human tour? Oh, she disappeared on me. Okay, well.
Hey Regina, I did see you in a bunch at a bunch of shows.
Did you?
Holding up all your signs. Hi Gil.
Yes.
Hi Mia.
Love. That's right. I want to give you love.
Cool.
I appreciate you.
Very, very cool.
Thank you.
Lynn, did you do a tile? Lynn keeps going back and forth. Lynn, stay with us.
No, I did not do a tile, but I was there present at the Virginia Beach show, and it was awesome.
Very nice. All right. Well, speaking of that show, we had Bruce McDaniel there.
All right.
Playing guitar.
Hey, everybody.
Yay.
Bruce, we're going to find out later, has a lot of experience in coffee, including doing this kind of coffee tasting, which for the rest of us was new last time. So, but we'll get into that after we do some tasting. Nick, you want to get us started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say thanks for having me. It's nice to see you all again and to see some new faces as well. So what we're doing here is what we call a coffee cupping. And what this is a really unique way to taste coffee without bias. So in theory, I've got 3 of the same cups, all with the same amount of coffee in them. And, when I do this every day for work, I actually don't know exactly what's in these cups. I might have an idea, but I keep it, kind of like double blind, so I can just taste the coffees and evaluate them with just my senses and no implicit bias. So I'm not like looking for certain smells or certain tastes. I'm just tasting what's going on in my roasting or with the coffee quality itself. So we've got 3 different coffees here. And the first step of any coffee cupping is actually it all has to do with smelling, using that sense. So what we're going to do is going from the first cup, and I'm probably going to be opposite of everybody, but like moving from left to right or right to left, depending on how you set it up. We're just going to smell this first coffee. We're actually going to smell the dry ground, the ground coffee by itself. Okay. So what I like to do is I like to take my cup and shake it, and then really get my nose in that big mug. Maybe what you want to do is cup your hands like so, and then just take a big whiff. Kind of like you would be smelling wine or smelling, like whiskey if you're into spirits. And if you're having a hard time smelling, you can always shake the cup and give it a good smell.
So, Nick, we're pouring water into number 1.
Oh, no, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Just checking out the grounds.
Yep. And then, as you once you've smelled number 1, if you want to, you can take some notes, what you think you smell. And once you've smelled it enough, feel free to move on to cup 2 and give that a smell as well.
Number 3 smells a little lighter than the other 2 for me. Anybody else want to comment? We have Marianne with us too. Marianne Lustig. Marianne, good to see you. You're in there somewhere, I think.
I'm here.
All right, good job.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi.
And so everybody just let me know when you're ready to roll to the next step.
All right.
Smells so good. I can't stand it.
I know. I'm in need.
Did anybody smell anything they'd like to comment on? I'd like to hear what you thought you smelled.
Yeah, the number 2 smelled a lot like the last round we did, which ended up being the decaf. So like sort of fruity, like berries. I smelled berries again.
Right on.
Okay, but I have an observation. I've been ordering the decaf all along with the regular, and none of these beans looked as dark. They didn't look dark like the Obsidian, and they didn't look dark like the decaf. They were all kind of a lighter colored bean, and I don't know if that means that they're not roasted as darkly, or if it's just the type of bean it is, or what.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all roasted a little bit lighter, and the reason behind that was I really wanted to display some as was mentioned, these are all from Peru. So I wanted to display what 3 different coffees from Peru, like what are the differences even within one country. So I didn't want to roast them super differently or super dark to hide any of the natural flavors. So what we're going to smell and taste today is just the inherent flavors of these coffees.
Okay.
I have a question. Most of these coffees, the beans what I'm used to seeing is a lot of oil.
Mm-hmm.
Like a real sheen on a bean, and these don't seem to have that. Is there a reason? Is that because it's Peru as opposed to Colombian?
No. So usually the oils only come out on the beans when you roast them really, really, really dark. So what happens is when you roast super dark, you actually just a natural part of the roasting process is the beans have pores, almost like how we have pores. And when you roast them super dark, the pores open up and the oil from the inside comes to the outside of the bean. And so when you don't roast them too dark, those oils are still inside. And that's why coffee that's roasted a little bit lighter has a slightly longer shelf life, is because the pores, the oxygen isn't getting into the pores.
And how does that affect the taste of the coffee? The more oil that is released from the bean, how does that affect it?
Yeah, definitely. So like darker coffee tends to be like very, very robust, very extremely rich, really dense and deep flavor. But, you know, if you have a dark coffee from Colombia and a dark coffee from Ethiopia, there only might be some really small differences. But if you roast them lighter, what you might notice is some of the more, I want to say like inherent features of like Ethiopian coffee versus Colombian coffee will be apparent. It's almost like I like to talk about it like grilling a steak. Like if you have Wagyu beef, and then you have like just something that you bought from the local grocery store, and you do them both like medium rare, you'll be able to really tell the difference between the Wagyu and something that's like cheaper. But if you roast them both super, super dark, or like you, if you're grilling them and you make them well done, the Wagyu and the cheaper steak, it's like, how can you tell what the inherent differences are? They're both going to taste like super well done steaks. So when I roast lighter, it's to display some of those really unique inherent features that are in the coffee, from where they came from, the farm, how they were processed.
Great, I understand. Thanks.
Right on.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Nick, Nick, I have one just quick question about the fineness or coarseness of the grind, and in particular for a tasting, as opposed to, you know, I'm about to make a cup of espresso or something like that. Do you go for a coarser grind on a tasting, or a medium, or what's the best move here?
I always like to tell people to shoot between kosher salt and table salt, right in that range. Tends to be really good for a cupping.
Well, let's taste up.
All right. Well, so the next step is to take the hot water, if you've got it. It's okay if it's right off boiling, but it should just be really hot. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to pour over each of the coffees. And basically what we're doing is almost like a French press. We're just going to let them brew for a little while and extract. So I'm doing the first cup, the second one.
And how much are we putting in? Or does it, as long as it's all the same, it doesn't matter?
So if you have like a mug, like something, you know, maybe about this size, you're going to want to do about 3/4 of the mug. If you have a really tall mug, I would say no more than half.
Okay, I have a scale, so I can.
Yeah, so you should use about like maybe 160 grams to 170 grams of water.
Okay. Oh, that's not much.
Are we supposed to stir?
Nope. Just leave them sit. And what you'll notice is, here, I'll bring the camera closer to me. On mine, you'll see a crust starts to form on the top of them. And then the next step of this process of cupping is actually, again, to use our the aromatic qualities. We're just going to smell the coffee, each one. So I like to just get over the brewing coffee and just smell what's coming off, the brewing smell. And you might want to let it sit for maybe a minute or two and then come back to it. We're going to let it sit for about 4 to 5 minutes and let it just steep and brew.
They all have this really floral scent to them. They're almost a flower.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's almost the same flower for each one.
Almost like I've said it's almost like a I don't want to say wildflower necessarily, but almost like in the spring, just the white floral that comes out, almost like a magnolia or something. Yeah.
Again, it's amazing how differently they smell after you put the water in them.
Yeah.
It completely changes. It's just as awesome.
Yeah, each step of the process brings out a different quality, which is why we do this like multiple level like sensory experience when we're trying to pick or select coffees. And then when I'm trying to figure out how to roast them as well, I'm doing this to figure out all the aspects of the coffee, what I like, what I dislike, or how I would want to change it in the roaster.
I have a question. So if you did a deep roast on these, would that floral scent kind of be taken away by the oil? Yeah.
So the darker you roast, the more of those inherent, like what we call like maybe like origin characteristics tend to fade away. So the florality would definitely go away. Floral notes tend to be in lighter roasts, whereas with those darker roasts, you get more of that robust, rich, almost like smoked, like smoky nuts, or like a deep, rich chocolatiness comes out.
I love that band, Smoky Nuts.
That's your next band.
They have a new record out.
We're gonna let these sit just a little bit longer. Feel free to smell them one more time, and if you then what you'll need is a spoon. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of stir the last step.
We're gonna stir it now.
So you can go ahead if you'd like. The main thing is basically what I like to do. If you want to watch me here, I'll do it first. But I've got this first cup. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spoon and I'm basically going to go down to the bottom of the cup and just do 1, 2, 3 and get really close and smell what like the final aroma is of this brewing coffee. So
Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot about the other water cup. You need to rinse your spoon, or if you have 3 spoons, right?
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Okay.
All right. And once you've done that, once you've smelled all of them, you'll notice there's a little bit of buildup here. I'll move this so you can see a little bit of buildup on the top. What we're going to do is we're just going to scoop that off into an extra glass. That way, when we taste, there's no stuff like lingering on the top. So I just take my spoon and I just grab whatever's sitting at the top and just skim it off.
Okay.
That way, it just looks like clear coffee ready to drink.
Wow, that smells so good.
So all these grounds are going to fall down to the bottom, right?
Yep. So most of them should fall down to the bottom, and then the ones that are at the top, you want to skim off and put into a spare cup.
We're not going to use them anymore, right? I can just dump them all in the same thing.
Yeah. The extra grounds, not the
Okay.
Some of those are tough to get.
Huh?
Some of those are tough to get. These.
I know. That's why I'm wondering.
It's like playing the game, yeah.
It's like skimming fat off of gravy.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, and now we have just a couple minutes. We're gonna let these cool down because they're really super hot right now. So if there's any questions, or if we want to do if we want to talk about anything, this would be a good time while these cool down a little bit for us to taste.
It seems that the floral scent is kind of dissipating.
Yeah. There's definitely what's interesting is when a coffee is brewing versus when you kind of when you're almost ready to drink it. It's weird, that florality, it might translate into flavors in the cup, but it doesn't always. The smell of brewing is very distinct. Sometimes you'll get aromas that you get while the coffee is brewing, or if you were ever making a pour over or like a French press, when you first pour that water, you're going to get this kind of powerful hit of aromas. And then when you drink it, that flavor or that aroma might not be there, but sometimes it still is.
Hey, Nick, just a quick question about the dark roasting.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a sort of a standard of time or temperature for the distinction between, say, an Italian roast and a French roast, and those named roasts, or is it kind of each manufacturer does his thing?
I think that's a great question. So back in the day, I think there used to be some really strict or like stringent, numbers or times or how oily it was. But I think even more so, Italian coffee is very unique because Italians like to use Robusta beans, which is a different kind of coffee altogether than what we're tasting today. And so I think what people gotten like used to with like Italian roast or an Italian coffee was like a different sort of bean, a different sort of flavor altogether. So I find that Italian and French roast, and sometimes they use the term like a continental roast, are all quite similar. Once you hit that oily stage, there's actually not much further you can go before you kind of like, there's actually a point where if you roast too dark, you'll set the coffee on fire. So, yeah, you have to discharge at some point. But like, the other day I did a really, really dark roast for a customer, and I just like kind of took some of the seeds out and we were watching them. I looked for that like nice sheen, and then I gave them an extra minute in there to really get completely coated in the oils before discharging them out of the roaster. But I don't know if there's too many differences nowadays. It might just be from company to company. They might have their own like kind of lingo and terminology.
Yeah, the main reason I ask is because, like if I go into Whole Foods, for example, I can see 4 or 5 different Italian roasts or French roasts that are different color, different.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like a completely different roast.
Yeah, and it's very likely that that company might be using different kinds of beans as well. So some beans will naturally get a little bit darker than others, depending on like the quality of them. So I'm not surprised at all. And for sure, I think back in the day there used to be a little bit more like this is how it was done, but today it's just like it's like everything. Everybody's got their own interpretation.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Nick, I have a question. Years ago, the big thing was Blue Mountain coffee or Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee, and I don't hear anything about that anymore. Is that true, or am I just not paying attention?
No, you're absolutely right. That's actually a really great question. Thanks for asking. So one of the really crazy things about coffee that a lot of people don't know is there's been multiple points in the history of coffee where there was a potential for extinction of coffee altogether as we know it. And the problem is coffee, like any sort of agricultural product, whether it be corn or soybeans, here in Indiana, we have tons of that. But, we have genetically modified these things to fight off disease and pests, right? So today, like corn and soybeans grown in Indiana are genetically modified vegetables and stuff. So in coffee, though, they're starting to move towards more genetically modified hybrids now that are resistant to disease. But what happened in Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, and most of Latin and South America were full of these old coffee trees that were super susceptible to this disease called coffee leaf rust. You could Google this and read more about it, but coffee leaf rust, there's been multiple points in the last, I want to say 100 years where there's been a breakout of this disease. And it is so bad. Basically what it does is it, coffee trees have these leaves, and the leaves absorb the sun. They take that energy and then they convert it into sugar that produce the little coffee cherries, and that's how they get ripe. Well, this disease destroys the leaves and basically kills the plant. And it's so bad that it could more or less destroy a whole coffee farm. So what happened in the Dominican Republic, in Jamaica, and Mexico, lots of parts of Latin America was ravaged by these diseases. Whole coffee plantations and farms were just destroyed overnight. And a lot of people abandoned coffee growing because of that. Now, today we've learned some methods without genetically modifying coffee to watch out for the disease. Make sure that you're fertilizing well, make sure you're not overplanting, make sure that you're pruning the trees correctly every year to make sure that they're healthy. Jamaica was one of those countries that got hit super hard. And what happened was basically the supply of coffee coming out of Jamaica dropped so drastically that the price, even though the quality was never amazing, the price skyrocketed. And there was such a limited quantity that people started looking elsewhere for their coffee. They started looking at Guatemala, parts of Mexico, El Salvador. And so, yeah, Jamaica kind of fell off in a lot of ways. And even though, I spent a lot of time reading about coffee, tasting coffee from all over the world, I've actually never really had a good Jamaican coffee. Even some of that Blue Mountain stuff that's still growing there naturally today, they just haven't really followed the trend of the industry to focus more on quality than quantity, And so I've just not found Jamaican quality to be there. And so I think it really fell out of the public eye after the disease and then never really made a comeback. It's still out there. It's just not as good as a lot of other coffee, I would say.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Disease has played a huge part in the way coffee has changed, the way it's changed the industry and the perception of coffee itself. So, if you guys are ever interested, just look up coffee leaf rust online. You'll find a lot of articles, and it's still a great fear, and that's why they're coming up with new varieties of coffee trees that are naturally resistant to this disease. So, well,
I need some caffeine.
Yeah. Let's taste. So, what I like to do, and I'll go here, is if you have a spoon, you can also do it straight out of a mug, I guess. But I like to do it with a spoon. Take my spoon. I just get maybe half a spoonful of the coffee right off the top. And then what we're going to do is, here, I'll go for it. We're going to almost slurp. And the whole idea of the slurping is that you're spraying your whole palate with the coffee and you're aerating it. So you're actually spreading the flavor notes all over your palate. You're getting a little bit more of what's going on. So I encourage you to just give maybe 1 or 2 slurps off that first coffee, make some notes. If it's still too hot, give it another minute, but it should be warm, like drinkable. And then move to your next coffee and make some notes about that. And we'll just keep going. I'm going to mute my mic so that it isn't super loud.
You can mute me, Doug.
You don't want to hear yourself slurping.
You don't hear me slurping.
Okay. Well, we got to have some kind of sound. I should have had some music loaded up or something, So, how about that? Okay, different, no doubt. Anybody else wants to comment? Feel free. I'm liking the first one best so far.
So far, me too. The first one is amazing. And it smelled amazing too, like right out of the bag.
So, y'all ready for the slurp? I guess that's right.
For me, 1 and 2 are very similar, and 3 is a lot different.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And once we've all tasted, we can talk about exactly what these 3 coffees are and why that is.
3 seems to have the broadest spectrum of taste.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Does anybody else have any thoughts on these cups?
I felt like the number 2 was a little bitter, and it didn't smell bitter, when I was smelling it before it was ground and then even after it was ground. But now it's my least favorite, and I don't smell the berries anymore like I did. Yeah, the berries, sort of berry flavor. But I love 3 and I love 1, and they're very different from each other.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think 2 tastes the least like I expected based on the smell.
Wow. Okay.
1 had, to me, in the smell, was the only one that sort of smelled a little smoky. The others were sort of more overwhelmingly fruity or sweet smelling. 1 smelled a little smoky and it retained some of that, but 2, to me, was the sort of the fruitiest on the nose just from the grinds, and it's lost a lot of that, and actually has. Was it Marianne that just said a little bitterness to it that I didn't expect because it was so floral on the nose from the grind.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
I felt like cup number 1 smelled and tasted the same, and I kind of tasted a dark chocolate in it.
Okay.
Wow. So,
Yeah, I'm getting a little chocolate from it too.
Yes, I am so glad Lynn said that. Number 1, because I thought I mixed the coffees up and I was afraid to speak. Yeah, so that's why I did. But number 1 almost tastes like dessert to me. It was creamy, chocolate, sweet, almost dessert. And two. I think I said I wrote what.
Oh, I think she got muted. Regina, I think you got muted.
You muted yourself. There you go.
Sorry.
I tend to do that. 2 is light and fruity, and 1, I unless I mix them up. 3. I'm sorry. 2 is light and fruity. 3 is robust. Almost like I would go to a diner and I'm going early in the morning at a truck stop, and I'm going to have a good cup of Joe. That's what I got from 3. 1, I got almost a dessert kind of. I can drink that black, and it's almost dessert. It's like a after dinner coffee.
Yeah.
2 would be my, I don't know, tutti frutti.
Yeah.
Fruity and light, fruity and light. Yeah, that's what I got.
You know,
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Oh, all I was going to say is, 2 things. One, I want to always feel encouraged to speak exactly what you're tasting. 2 things, that people don't think about when they taste coffee is, though we all have palates, none of them are the same. And that's the beauty about coffee is like, we can have a difference in opinions and thoughts. One person can think bitter and another can think sweet. And you're not wrong. You're both right in your own way. And that's sometimes why I hate putting tasting notes on coffee bags. I don't want to make people think like they're tasting something wrong. The other thing is, and we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but like the water you use to brew coffee will completely change what flavors come to the front. The water that, I use here in our coffee lab is reverse osmosis, and then we actually add minerals back in to flavor the coffee specifically, like for extracting the flavors. So a lot of people at home, they don't have that crazy sort of setup. And so, the flavors that are going to come out are naturally going to be a little bit different. And of course, if you're using local water, our water in Fort Wayne is super limestone heavy, which is going to completely change the flavor, of course. So, just keep on throwing out flavor notes. Nobody's wrong. I love hearing all of it.
I have an unrelated question. Is there a different caffeine content in regions or in roast, or does a light roast have less caffeine than a dark roast?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think back in the day, we used to always say like lighter coffee has more caffeine than dark roast, but I don't know that it's that as much as when you brew lighter coffee. So I'm going to get really scientific and follow me like if you want to, or just like tune me out. But so the major difference between when you roast really dark and really light is how much of the coffee seed are you breaking down and making available for extraction. And what I mean by extraction is when the water touches that ground coffee, how much flavor is going to be able to pull out. With lighter coffee, there's actually less extractive flavor, like less flavor flavor readily available on the seed, like, on the surface area of the ground coffee. So when I brew lighter coffee, I tend to grind finer to make sure that there's more like surface area available than I would for a dark roast. Because the dark roast is broken down more, I can grind it a little bit coarser, maybe use a little bit more water to extract the same amount of flavor. Now, I think the reason why people think light roast has more caffeine than dark roast is because they were grinding it finer and you had to like tune it up a little bit more to extract the flavor. And you're actually getting just a more like concentrated brew of coffee than a dark roast. But actually when in the, the science that I've read actually shows that between the average light roast and the average dark roast, there's not a lot of difference in available caffeine content. It's very little change, pretty minuscule. But perception is everything.
So that would explain why an espresso or a Turkish coffee or Greek coffee would be so caffeine rich, because of the fine ground.
Yep. Yeah. You're basically using the water. The average espresso, is 1 part coffee to 2 parts water. The average brewed cup of coffee is 1 part coffee to 18 to 17 parts water. So, when you drink espresso, you're talking about the same difference between if you drink a 6 ounce Miller Lite and then a 2 ounce of Buffalo Trace whiskey. Super concentrated.
Well, you had mentioned before about Italian coffee, and I remember when I was there, they bring out a little pitcher of super like syrupy coffee, and then the big pitcher of hot milk or steamed milk. What I don't remember what it was,
Sure.
but I just remember that I was so surprised because of course in the States it's the opposite. You get more coffee and just a little milk or whatever. But is that a different way of brewing, or do they just not add as much water, or what's the story with that? If you know.
Yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, I think the major thing with Italian style coffee in general is the kind of coffee they use. So in the world of coffee, and I also while I talk, I encourage you to continue tasting these as they cool, because the flavors will change pretty drastically as they go from really hot to almost room temperature. But to explain it really quickly, in the world of coffee, there's two main varieties of coffee tree in the world. You have coffee Arabica and coffee Robusta. And coffee Arabica is what we're drinking here today. It's always it has the potential for super high quality, a lot of fruitiness, a lot of expressiveness of what we would call the origin characteristics or the unique flavor and aromatic qualities. Now, coffee Robusta is more robust. Arabica coffee, the trees are very susceptible to disease, to pests and bugs eating at them. They have to be grown in a very specific climate and taken well, like fertilized very well, taken care of very well to produce high quality coffee. Now, Robusta trees, you can plant them at lower elevations. You can plant them more closely together, and they're not known for those quality factors that we really enjoy in our coffee. They're just known for that really rich, almost like pure nutty flavor in coffee. And it's much cheaper because of that, but they're also super resistant to disease. So in Italy, they love...
I also read that it's twice the caffeine.
Yep. And way more
in the Robusta.
Yeah, way more caffeine. So, I mean, Italian coffee is basically probably like a blend of like 80% Robusta to 20% Arabica. And it is super high powered. I mean, that stuff will get you really lit real quick. And so, I mean, Italians, they might make only this amount of coffee, but that little amount of coffee might have your whole daily caffeine intake. And so the way that they just experience it is completely different from here. And they're just more about, let's drink this. Like, it's super syrupy, it's super rich and nutty, and it's ultra high velocity coffee. And they're not as interested in like some of those maybe more like dainty or like gentle, delicate flavor and aroma sensations that we are about with Arabica coffee, So I think that's why in Italy you might have had this little cup of coffee with all this milk, because it's pretty powerful stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. So with this coffee, with these Peru coffees, how different would a cup be if made in a French press or in an espresso maker?
Yeah, so I think, what we're doing here is very similar to a French press. We just took the ground coffee, we poured hot water over it, and then basically we let it steep, almost like tea, for a couple of minutes. And then in theory, with a French press, you would just press down, you would pour this out. And that's kind of it would be very similar to a French press. With espresso, because it's so much more intense, I think you would find these to be a little bit sour, a little bit like overly acidic, because you might notice these are lighter roasts, so they have some acidity there. But that is going to be like ramped up on espresso. And that's why, like, for my own espresso, I like more a medium or a dark roast with my espresso. The acidity is a little bit tamer. It tends to be a little bit more chocolatey. That's how I like my espresso, at least. Some people like a more acid forward espresso, but I would say these are like, in Australia and Southeast Asia, they talk a lot about like filter roast versus espresso roast. These are definitely like a filter coffee roast.
So would this coffee be best as a drip?
Yeah, definitely drip or French press, any sort of like filter brewing method. I would probably say these are, if you do make these on espresso, just be ready. They're going to be pretty explosive. Yeah, so I'm going to taste these one more time, and then I say we figure out exactly what they are. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what they are. Absolutely.
All right, so the first cup that you guys tasted, actually, so again, they're all from Peru, so they're all from the same country. And this is what's really fun about this tasting and why I love doing cuppings with people, because this is a way of exploring coffee in just a completely different way. These are all very similar. They're roasted extremely similarly too. The only major difference is maybe where they came from. So these first two coffees, believe it or not, are from the same farm and from the same farmer. And the only difference between the two is the kind of tree. That's it. So we have two different kinds of coffee trees represented here. The first one is what I would call a Pache, P-A-C-H-E, and it's a variety that is known for, maybe if you got the non-ground coffee, you might notice that the seeds are they all look pretty similar. It might be a little bit longer, a little bit rounder than the second one, but this is just a very specific variety of tree that I really enjoy. You guys mentioned it's very floral. I love the floral qualities of this coffee. I think that they do translate a little bit into the cup, but it's definitely got a chocolatiness, a very dessert-like quality, and also like a nice tangy, almost like dried fruity acidity that like lingers after you sip it, or at least it does on my water. Any thoughts about this first one as we're continuing to taste?
I agree with the chocolate deal. It's my favorite of the three.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's funny too because because 1 and 2 are, to me are very, very similar.
Yeah.
Oh. Yep. I think they're so different. Wow.
Yeah, I think number 2 is like coffee light.
I was right off the one. Yes, that is the dessert coffee. I really love that one. It's my favorite. Yeah.
And so 2 reminds me a little bit of some of those from last time.
Yep.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree.
The part about that is this cup 2 is so the tree variety, we call it Bourbon, almost like bourbon, but it's Bourbon. And I tend to find that this is a little bit more fruity, and this variety tends to grow all over the world. It's one of the favored varieties by coffee farmers because of its aromatic qualities. It grows very easily. And it's just a very rich flavored coffee. At least here at Utopian, I get a little bit of like a berry flavor. The chocolatiness is not as intense. It tends to be a little bit more delicate, a little bit more soft, a little bit more acidity too. So maybe that's where you're picking up on some of that bitterness. But yeah, so these are both from a farmer. His name is Mercedes. Almost like Mercedes, but so Mercedes is he has a farm, and it's only about 8 acres. And he grows these 2 varieties on the farm. And this last year, so I actually cupped through 15 different Peruvian coffees. And these 2 were right next to each other, and I smelled them, and I was like, I really love the smell of both of these. They're slightly different. They're both a little bit floral, but the first one I was like definitely more dessert-like, maybe like a stone fruit character. The second one had a little bit more of like a berry-like character. So I bought them both, and I was like, I want to show people that even though they're from the same farm and they have some of the same qualities, there's also a difference. And the only difference is the kind of tree that they came from.
Wow.
So
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is the coffee going to taste the same every year? I mean, because growing conditions will change, amount of rain will change and all that. So the fact that you're entering into this agreement with this guy buying his coffee, is it just like a one-shot deal, or do you say, okay, for the next 5 years, I'm going to buy your coffee, but you're not guaranteed it's going to taste the same?
Yeah, totally. So that's an awesome question. It totally depends. Okay. So yeah, I mean, especially when you're buying from a single farmer, you have to be ready for changes every year because of exactly what you said. Climatic conditions can change. There can be more annual rainfall, less annual rainfall. They might change how they're processing the coffee that year. He might decide to ferment the coffee a little bit longer, give it a little bit more of a fruitiness or less of fruitiness. And so when we buy, for me, I'm always cupping blind. Every year when it's time to buy from Peru or Colombia or Ethiopia, I will have a whole bunch, about 15 cups lined up, and I'll just taste them all, and I'll be like, I like these 3 or 4, and then I usually just buy them. And so these are 3 that I picked out from Peru this year, and I'm okay with a little bit of variation year after year. Now, if it's okay, I'd love to answer your question by actually talking about this third cup. So most of you notice that this cup is kind of the odd one out. There's something really different about it.
Yeah.
And somebody in particular said that there's actually a wider range of flavor going on. Yes, yeah. So there definitely is. I completely agree. There's a wider range of flavors, aromas. It's just there's a little bit more variance, and there is a reason for that. And so where these 2 coffees came from a single farm, a single variety of tree, this is what we would call a community lot. So this is actually from a very close region in Peru. It's only, a number of kilometers away from this farm, but this is 20 different farmers' coffees blended together.
Wow.
So what you have is, instead of maybe 1 or 2 varieties, you have maybe about 7 or 8 different kinds of varieties of trees. You have 20 different little micro geographical climatic regions all being pulled together to create a blend, we call it a field blend, more or less. So that's why you're going to have a little bit more variance in the flavor. There's still going to be some similarities because it's all from Peru and all from the same area. But this one to me really stood out because it also had some of the floral qualities, but it has a good chocolatiness, has a great nuttiness. It still has almost a slight tropical fruit flavor. And sometimes like a grape even. I get like a grape-like flavor. And this coffee is actually one of the coffees that is in our espresso blend right now. It's roasted a little bit darker for our espresso blend, but I love the richness of this cup. I find that it's really balanced and that it's good everyday drinking coffee. And I've just been in love with it. So this is from what we call a community or a komite. So again, like 20 different farmers that are pulling their coffees collectively together, selling it collectively together as well. And this one's called the Los Santos.
Los Santos.
So Nick, question on that. They harvest them separately, obviously, but are they roasted as a unit or are they individually roasted?
Yeah, so to break down a little bit of how you get something like this. So what happens is, with our partners, you can Google them. They're really awesome folks. They're called Origin, ORIGIN Coffee Lab in Peru. There's some really amazing folks. They are the nicest people ever. I love working with them. The work they're doing in Peru is really amazing. And so one of the things that they've wanted to encourage farmers to do is they will make a connection with 1 or 2 families in the community, maybe some senior families that have been coffee growers for a long time. And then they will use that family as a way to educate other coffee farmers in the region about how to process their coffees really well. And then what happens is every year when harvest is finishing, each family basically processes their coffee cherries on their farm. And then they'll deliver them to one of the main families in the community. What will happen is then either one of the people from the Origin Coffee Lab team will go to that family. They'll take a sample roaster with them. They'll roast all these different individual lots because each family may have 3 or 4 different lots or selection of coffee. They'll roast them all and they'll say, okay, all of these are about the same profile, flavor, quality-wise. We're going to blend all these together and make what we would call like a macro lot. So these are micro lots. There's only like 10 of these bags available in the world of each variety. There was like 150 bags available of this because it came from so many different farms. So they'll actually blend all those green coffee, the raw product together, and then sell it to me as a blended lot. And then I roast it all together. It just comes in a bag as the Los Santos community coffee.
So just one follow-up from that, and I don't know if anybody else experienced this or this is just my psychology at work here, but it seemed to me that 1 and 2, the flavors changed more as the temperature changed, not for better or worse, but just each sip kind of tasted differently as the temperature changed. But 3 remained pretty consistent through the temperatures. Is that kind of a characteristic of a blend, or is that something you look for when you're picking out, a coffee to see whether it does consistently taste a certain way. Because we all know, like, that bad feeling when the bottom of the cup of coffee when you start getting cold is nasty, you know. And
Yeah.
this remained tasting good all the way through the cold temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're hitting something that's like really important, which is like a large part of my job is buying for our blends and finding something that is going to be consistent roast after roast. And I mean, next season, there's going to be a little bit of variance in this, but it's going to have a pretty similar flavor profile when we go to purchase it. And I mean, it's just kind of the protection of buying from a large group because it is blended. There's like less of this, it's almost like this, you're seeing exactly what there is, like almost like completely transparent down to the single tree, right? And so if there is a little bit more like change in flavor or a little bit more of like a nuance from cup to cup, that's just part of the like the idiosyncrasy of buying from a single farm and selecting something like ultra specific versus something that's a little bit more representative of an area, of a region, of a community. It's just got a little bit more room for, I don't want to say margin for error by any means, but like it's a little bit more forgiving in a blend or a little bit more easy to use when blending or just drinking by itself. There's just, even though there's more variation in the bean, there's less micro variation in the sense that like it's not from a single tree, it's not from a very single farm or a single farmer got to oversee the whole process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you know, it's that consistency, I guess. Like, there's a lot to be said for that when you're brewing a bunch of coffee all the time. You know, I'm cool with when I'm picking out coffee that I haven't tried before, of it being like, whoa, that's really wild and different. But it might not be the coffee that I want every day over and over again. Because at least I know what the result of that coffee is going to be.
Yeah, I would like say if we're gonna compare this to something else, I would say these like first cups for me. I'm a big bourbon whiskey drinker. These are like some of those more experimental whiskeys that are coming out now, where they're using like a really odd grain profile to get crazy flavors. But like this is like old granddad. Like this just works every day. So.
Nick, is Emily trying today?
I think Emily is watching. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see her on the camera. I was going to see if we could get her feedback, but she's got her camera off or something.
Oh, man.
Come back in, Emily. Go out and come back in unless you've got your camera off, maybe. But there she is. Let's say hello. Were you trying to, Emily?
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Emily.
I was not talking. I was drinking our new Oscar Nunez while listening, which I had almost an entire bag of this morning, and I'm the rest of my day. It's a lot of coffee.
What are you drinking?
So Emily's drinking our new coffee. So this is a new coffee that we just released this last week from Honduras, which is
my connection.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, her connection is bad.
So yeah, Emily, right before she texted me, or right before I jumped into this, she texted me. She's like, I just drank nearly a whole bag of our new Honduran coffee. And if I may do a little shameless plug, one of the things that I've been super excited about, so part of the name behind Utopian Coffee is this idea that we want to be the sort of company, we want to do the sort of work that is like giving back in some really tangible ways to make this world a more equitable place, to make this world a more beautiful place for everybody who lives in it. And one of the ways we've been able to do that in coffee is by working with farmers who either haven't had an opportunity to sell their coffee into these like what we call like the international market, you know? So I'm in the USA and I can sample a coffee from Peru, buy it, make a direct connection with that farmer. I like to work with farmers who are maybe a little bit on the fringes, who are new to specialty coffee. So Oscar Nunez is a farmer from Honduras. This is only his second year ever producing specialty coffee and selling it in the international market. Now, as everybody knows, COVID hit and screwed over just about every coffee roaster and coffee shop in the United States and in the world. And one of the big problems with that, and one of the things that we haven't like really been able to talk about a lot, is the fact that a lot of coffee roasters went out of business. they weren't able to buy as much coffee from their partnerships this year. And that like really left a lot of farmers in a pretty dire situation. Like, so Oscar was a farmer who had a direct connection to a roaster here in the US, and that roaster went completely out of business. And so Oscar's coffee was going to go unsold. He didn't have anybody to sell it to. And we got connected through the Bona Venture. So BONAVENTURE. They're on Instagram, the Bona Venture Coffee Project. And their whole goal was to connect Honduran coffee farmers who lost their like connections or their partnerships via COVID with with coffee roasters who had the ability to actually like, make connections and to purchase their coffee and maybe to purchase their coffee into the future. So we bought Oscar's coffee this year, and we bought it because he lost his connection, and we are absolutely loving it. It is an extremely chocolatey coffee. It's got a nice caramel flavor, and I've actually been drinking it a ton here. I'm really bummed that it wasn't part of our lineup this morning. I apologize. I just started roasting it last week, so it was super brand new. But that's just part of what we do, is connect with coffee farmers who need good partnerships and good roaster relationships. We're trying to be that stable force in the supply chain to really help make this world a better place, because coffee farmers, they're really good at producing coffee. They just need somebody to buy it. They need a trusted partnership. So, yeah.
So Dave, we have a lot of questions from people in our chat about cold brew. I think we talked about that last time, but I'm not sure. But let's address it again if you don't mind.
Totally, hit me. I can't pull up the chat, so if anybody could.
They're just wondering if these coffees that we're drinking would be okay for a cold brew.
Yeah, they totally could. I don't make a lot of cold brew. I'm the sort of dude it'll be 95 degrees outside and I'll still be drinking a hot cup of coffee. It's just how I'm made. Coffee roasters were cut from a different cloth, okay? But yeah, I would say that any of these coffees can make a good cold brew because they are a little bit lighter. Some of those acidic qualities or those fruity qualities could be a little bit more apparent in cold brew. If you're looking for like an awesome coffee that I roast that would make a great cold brew, I highly recommend either our Union blend or Obsidian blend. Those we tried at least one or two of those last time in the cupping that we did on here. Those would both make a really good cold brew. I find that darker roasts tend to translate a little bit better into cold brew than lighter roasts.
Well, everybody loved Obsidian. It seemed like last time that was a hit. Yeah, I know I ordered some. I think Carol has. Yeah, it's good stuff. So why don't we see what everybody's top choices were? Out of 1, 2, 3. We'll start up top with Kasim.
Number 3, the Peru. Which one? The Los Santos.
Yeah,
is that Los Santos? Yeah, the Los Santos for me, for sure.
How about you, Carol D'Amico?
Yeah, same. Actually, I love one as well, but if I have to pick one, like I think 3 is the winner.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. How about you, Bruce?
I'm gonna buck the trend here and appreciate 3 for the smoothness and the broadness of it, but I like things that are a little on the outside more, and so I'm going for number 1.
Right on.
Nice. How about you, Regina?
Number one all the way. Yes, I like it.
I might get to be a tiebreaker here.
I like it sweet and creamy.
How about you, Marianne Lustig?
I also liked number 1 the best. I liked number 3, but it kind of, I don't know if I'm using the right word, but it was almost a little acidic on my tongue. And it was still good. I mean, I would drink it, but number 1, I definitely preferred.
Right on.
All right, Marianne, by the way, going just a little late from Chicago area. Welcome. I like number 1. I like the chocolate, I guess. And 3 for me was light, but I think I must have put too much water in there, not enough beans or something. I'm gonna have to try that one again because I didn't get the what y'all are saying, so I think I did something wrong. But yeah, no surprise there.
I drank my 1 all up. It's gone.
Nope, nobody picked number 2. I noticed. And I didn't really care for it that much either. It was it reminded me of I think number 4 from last time, just a little funky.
Yeah. You know what though? Number 2, I didn't like it when we did the first tasting And then I tasted it again about 20 minutes later, and it tasted different, and I actually liked it. So, I love coffee, so I drink it.
I think number two is the most anonymous out of the three.
Yeah. So, Carol, would you say any of these were better than your favorite from last time?
They're just so different. So, I think I was different in the last time. I loved number 3. I was crazy about number 3 last time, and I think that's the one that nobody else liked.
That's right.
Yeah, because I tried to get it and it was gone.
Look.
Yeah, that was weird.
Too late.
They're totally different. I can't even compare them. The flavors are just so drastically different that kind of goes back to like what Marianne was saying earlier. Like, over the years and the climates change, and so the beans are going to change. And then how do you know, like, if you're going to keep buying and it's not going to taste different? I mean, you never really think about that when you're buying coffee. You're just buying coffee. You're grinding the beans. You're drinking your coffee every day. But really, these flavors change like with every bag.
True.
So I think that it's just sort of hard to compare, Doug, from getting back to your original question. It's hard to compare from the very first tastings because those coffees were from a different country, from a different region, just completely different. So I don't have a favorite as far as like the coffees from last time versus the coffees from this time. Maybe I do because I was so blown away by number 3. But but I'm really loving number 3 in this group. But I'm gonna drink 1 and 2 like without a doubt. I'm gonna be drinking those too.
There's nothing here that I wouldn't happily drink.
Right on.
That's an important distinction. And but also being like somebody who loves coffee, I feel the same way about beer. Like any coffee is better than no coffee.
Totally.
But that being said, these are all extremely drinkable coffee. It's not like one is, I guess I have to drink it. These are good.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Well, yeah, I want to thank you for all the kind compliments on the coffee. This is I spent a lot of time tasting coffee, and this last year I tasted 15 Peruvian coffees, all side by side, and these were the 3 I selected, and I don't regret those selections. I love these coffees, and I'm so happy that everybody was able to enjoy each one, even though there was differences, and the fact that even though there were some real differences between them, the fact that they're all very drinkable just makes me super happy.
So Emily's still kind of got a weak connection, I think. So she might be better answering this question, but maybe you can. What are these selling well? Is there one that's selling better than the other?
Yeah, actually, believe it or not, so lot 2 we have sold this so quickly. I don't know if it's just like, again, water is so important. I don't know if it's most of our customers, are in the Midwest. And this coffee is sold extremely quickly. But Los Santos, so just a couple weeks ago, we actually did another tasting session, and Los Santos was the favorite during that one. Okay. So, we're selling all of them quickly. I think number 1, because it tends to be a little bit more dessert-like, a little bit more delicate than the others sometimes, doesn't get as much love. But, people are always looking for the quick, fast thing. And I think this one's like you got to slow down and think about it for a minute coffee. So we're not selling it as fast, but these 2 coffees in particular are pretty limited. I would say we'll have these maybe for about another month. And then they'll be gone until I purchase this upcoming brew. This one we should have for a little while. So if you really like Los Santos, you can totally buy a bag. I'm sure we'll probably have it through maybe July or August at the latest. So
great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Nick?
I do.
Let's hear it.
I was surprised to see that Vietnam is a huge coffee producer, and I wondered if you ever buy from Vietnam.
Yeah, absolutely. So they got super into producing coffee, and they produce mainly Robusta. So the other kind of coffee. So I don't actually buy any coffee from Vietnam right now. They're very much quantity over quality. But I actually have a good friend named Will He's a kind of a coffee genius. He actually makes me look like kind of a dunce when it comes to coffee. But he's living in Vietnam. He was here in Fort Wayne for a while doing some stuff. Moved to Vietnam and is actually trying to push the coffee sector there to focus more on specialty quality. And so I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years we see some really amazing Vietnamese coffee. But right now, I haven't gotten my hands on anything really spectacular from there. So, yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Let me check the chat room. All good. Okay. All right, Nick. Good deal. We appreciate everything.
Yeah.
We're gonna
thank you so much.
stick around and talk about coffee some more. So you're welcome to stay with us. Kasim, do you have a question?
No. I was just saying goodbye.
No, don't say goodbye. We still got to talk, man.
Okay.
We're gonna shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, and let's start with you because I'm not sure. I think last time because you were on your way to a gig, which is awesome. You got to do a live gig. Tell us what your coffee story is. How long you've been drinking coffee and what kind you like and that type of thing.
Well, my dad started me on coffee when I was in my in my tweens actually, and my father would actually. I have.
Yeah. Hope you didn't break it, whatever it is.
So my father would make coffee in the morning in a percolator.
Me too.
Yeah.
Percolator.
And then he would take that same perk, and then somewhere around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, pour what was ever left in this pan. And heat it up on the stove until it boiled, and then drank that. My father always drank his coffee black, no sugar, and then I didn't start drinking black, no sugar until I stopped drinking. I was always a milk and sugar guy, but now for the past 30 years, I have not used milk or sugar in my coffee. Every so often, I'll have some Turkish coffee and an ibrik, which is they make Turkish and Greek coffee in this, and it's really weird because you put the coffee in, you put the water in, and it boils until it foams at the top. You do that 3 times until it foams, and then you drink it. And you have to put a ton of sugar in it, otherwise it's completely undrinkable. And then you just go into outer space. There's so much caffeine in it, and the grind is so fine on Turkish and Greek coffee. I will not start a day without making a pot of coffee. This is impossible for me to start my day without at least 1 cup, 2 cups of coffee. And I love it, and I've been a coffee drinker all my life. I probably will be until I die.
So you have a couple cups in the morning, and do you have some more during the day, or is that it?
No. I'll make a whole pot, whether or not my son and myself drink it. Usually, about the latest that I'll have a cup of coffee is 5, 6 o'clock. That's about the latest. Unless I'm out with friends and I'm having dinner out, then I'll have an espresso or a decaf late at night. But usually I stop drinking coffee somewhere around 6, 7 o'clock is about the latest.
So were you drinking coffee with your dad back in the day?
Yeah.
Sit down and drink coffee together.
Yeah. He's a big coffee drinker, and that's that. But I think that there wasn't a boutique market back then. It was like A&P coffee, ground, and probably I don't know the equivalent of 8 o'clock. That's the 8 o'clock coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's pretty popular here on the East Coast. And there was no such thing as a grinder. You ground it in the supermarket. Actually, there was a grinder in the supermarket. They have them in Trader Joe's now too.
Yep.
That's right.
And that's how we drank coffee. There was no like this coffee came from Colombia or Peru or Guatemala or Honduras. It was like This coffee came from wherever it came from, and that's what you're drinking.
Right.
All right. Maybe one day Nick can get some coffee from New York and we can call it the Kasim Sulton Utopian Coffee.
Well, let's not get carried away. There you go.
Awesome. All right. So, Bruce, how about you, man? What you got some experience with coffee. We definitely want to hear about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, minimal. You know, I've pulled a lot of espresso shots in the restaurant, and you know, I can actually do latte art and stuff like that. If that's a useful skill after the apocalypse for somebody to make a leaf on the top of your coffee. But you know, I think I came pretty late to coffee because my mom hated coffee, and so we never really had it around the house. The best we would have would be like a little thing of Sanka or something, you know, like some instant horror that probably I tasted once and was like, no, that's not for me. And in fact, my dad drank Postum, which I don't know, you know, if folks know what that is. It's like a grain-based coffee substitute that probably started out, and I'm just guessing, it probably started during the war when there was shortages of coffee, and it gave you something to drink in the morning that was brewed. And I'm not sure if I ever tasted it, but I have a bad association with it, even if I never tasted it, just from the smell of it. It smelled like a bag of dirt or something. But in my 20s, I started drinking coffee, you know, like just survival coffee, grab it at the deli, start the day with it. And, you know, that pot had probably been sitting there for quite a while. And I just drank it as gasoline. And I think when I started traveling in Europe and started tasting like coffee that was made with care to taste good, I realized how much I liked coffee. And I think that I had a reaction that I know has been echoed by some of my friends, that when I was growing up, I said, you know, if coffee just tasted like it smelled, I would like it because it smells so good. But it never quite tasted that way. And then I started finding coffee that actually tasted like it smelled. And then it was a fantastic revelation that could be a thing. And now, forget it, I've gone way off the deep end, and I have every device for creating various coffees. You know, I have the Mocha Pot, and I have an old percolator, and I have French presses, and I never really travel without something to make coffee. And when we were in Chicago, I brought an AeroPress with me. Grace had an AeroPress too. And that routine, beyond just the drinking of the coffee, the actual routine and the ritual of making the coffee in the morning is the thing that I like the most. You know, first thing I do when I get out of bed is I start that process with whatever device it is that I have, you know, to do it with. And then I went sort of way overboard on the dark roast, like the darker the better, the darker the better. And now I've kind of backed it off to enjoying the flavor profiles of different roasts. And so when we were picking what roast or what purveyor to use for the restaurant here in New Orleans, we got lucky timing wise, because there were a number of small coffee companies in New Orleans all kind of popping up at the same time, and they all had great product. And we did, you know, we visited all the roasters and we did cuppings everywhere. And
hey, Bruce, before we continue, I don't think everybody knows that you've been in the restaurant business or in the restaurant business. So just what you're talking about, you're referring to your restaurant business.
Yeah, just casually, you know, like I say casually that there's a lot of work in even casual participation in the restaurant business. But I've been involved in a couple of restaurants in New Orleans. And in fact, beyond that, my daughter and son who live here are both managers in restaurants. You know, like it's such a restaurant city in New Orleans. Everybody, you know, has had some degree of getting their fingers in the restaurant business. But I had a restaurant here that has since closed during the pandemic. That was a Spanish restaurant. And so coffee became a very important part of it. And we wound up selecting, I would say they were sort of a mid-sized coffee company at the time, but now have really blown up, and they have a number of brick and mortar coffee shops, but they also provide a lot of coffee for the restaurant business here. And I think, to going back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, there was more, for me, more of a focus on consistency, because we were doing it in a restaurant. We were making many cups a day, and people, you know, who are walk-in customers that are used to your coffee tasting a certain way, they come in expecting that. And if you get something that's a little weird or a little outside of that norm, it may be delicious, but it may not be the thing that that regular customer wants. So we would be very consistent with the product that we were trying to deliver to the customer. But at home, I change it up a lot, and I like to try different things, and that's why something like this is great. I wouldn't necessarily run out and buy beans that looked this light under normal circumstances, because I'm generally I like a darker roast, but this was lovely. So
there you go. All right.
What's a Mocha Pot?
What the Mocha Pot is, that Italian thing that looks like it's like a pyramid on the bottom, and then has another thing on top, and it works through the magic of physics. I still don't even understand how it works, but it works.
You got to have one at Utopian Coffee if it's got a pyramid. I mean, come on. You know they got one there, right? Okay, so let's see. We had Carol was on last time. We got her percolator coffee story. Regina, how about you giving us a little action on yours?
Okay, I've been drinking coffee from birth, but it was mostly, see, in our family, matriarchal family, it's always coffee perking in the percolator, like Kasim, we're the same age. But when I was a baby, like 2 years old, it was mostly milk with a little bit of coffee and a lot of sugar. So, and it was always that coffee making and grits and eggs and plump. But then as we got older, as I became older, then mother was always on a diet. So then we couldn't drink coffee with a lot of milk and sugar. Then we had to learn how to drink it black. And that's when I had to force myself, because like someone said, it smells so good. Why can't it taste good without all of this sugar and milk and stuff? So then I just taught myself to appreciate what I consider good coffee. And what I consider good coffee was McDonald's coffee. To me, McDonald's coffee was the best coffee. You could drink it black, you could drink it with milk, you could drink it with food, without food. And that's the best I knew. That's all I knew was good old McDonald's coffee. No one could make it better. Starbucks couldn't make better coffee than McDonald's. Arabica can't make it. So, and Juan Valdez, I knew that you know, and that was the commercial. And when I was a little kid, the Colombian beans and Juan Valdez, that's where you got your coffee from. So, to answer what Kasim said, I knew where we got our coffee from. We got it from Juan Valdez. So that's all I knew about coffee. So this is I'm going to school now. And so now I understand why I like something or why I don't like it, or what I'm supposed to be looking for. Just much like wine or anything else.
Yeah. You can get outside of McDonald's then.
That's right. That's right. I can put
McDonald's. Their coffee did beat Starbucks in a contest years ago. I remember.
Yeah. See, I know what I speak. Well,
now you can, expand
it's
your palate.
Appreciating art. You don't, you just know what you like. That's all, it's all relative.
Sure. All right. Good deal. Well, Marianne Lustig from Chicago area, probably wearing her Pink Floyd shirt because of the new song.
Well, exactly. And I appreciate your noticing it. I mean, it's not a real Pink Floyd shirt because it does have a shark on it, but the shark side of the moon. So, anyway.
Right.
Yeah, well, I was not a big coffee drinker as a youngster, but my dad and my mom drank it, and I loved the smell every day, but I didn't like the taste of it. And then after I graduated from high school, I was waitressing, and the place I worked made us pay for anything we drank unless it was coffee. We could have water, we could have coffee free. So I just started drinking the coffee. So I drink coffee hot, cold, lukewarm, whatever, because I would pour a cup and then I would get a table and then I would have to leave and go do my thing. And then I would come back, and of course the coffee would have cooled off by then, but I still drank it because I just did. So that just kind of molded my coffee drinking habit. So I drink it any way it is. And then I kind of graduated as all the flavored coffees came into being. I morphed into some of that stuff and went through a phase of all the flavored coffees, but I have now transitioned out of that, and I don't even care for that anymore. So I'm a straight coffee drinker. However, I used to put milk in it all the time until I started on this Utopian coffee, and I realize now, thank you, Nick, that I don't need to put milk in it anymore.
Wow.
So now I'm a black coffee drinker.
Do you like bold or light?
Depends on my mood, I guess.
Gotcha. Do you how many cups a day you think you drink?
Well, I make a pot in the morning, and I pretty much drink it all day long. And then I was told to cut the caffeine that I was taking in. So now I do caffeine in the morning, and then I switch to the Utopian decaf, which again, thank you, Nick. It is the best. It's so wonderful. I still have 2 cans of I don't know what it is, Hills Brothers or something, and I'm going to give it away because I can't drink it now.
Wow,
you ruined me.
Our decaf. Man, to me, decaf just shouldn't taste bad. I don't know why decaf has. Why people think that decaf has to be nasty. It doesn't. Our decaf tastes
and it
amazing.
Doesn't even smell good now. You know what? When you compare the two.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks.
Nick, did you tell us last time that flavored coffee was sprayed on? The flavors are sprayed on. How did you tell us flavored coffee?
Totally. Yeah, so there's usually a couple of ways to do it, but I think the way that I hear most roasters do it is they'll either put it on the green coffee right before roasting it, or while roasting it. It's almost like an oil, like an essential oil of sorts, and they'll put it in the coffee, and it coats the coffee in that flavoring. And that's how you get that hazelnut coffee. And look, if we're being real here, I like hazelnut coffee every now and then. There's just something about it. I don't buy it. I don't go out of the way. But if somebody has a pot of hazelnut coffee, I'm like, hit me, I like that flavor. But yeah, we just don't do any of it. And I have no idea where these oils are coming from. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy process. And, our goal with Utopian is just to kind of display what the farmers are up to. And so I don't want to cover that up with anything.
Interesting. So, when I quit listening to
knowledge is power.
What's that?
Knowledge is power. I just said knowledge is power. That's right. Thank you. I want to know where it's going.
Sometimes I try to, listen to these financial people that want to help you get rich or make more money. And I totally lose respect for them as soon as they say, just give up a cup of coffee a day and you can save enough to retire. I'm like, no. You're out. You're fired.
Yeah, why don't you just live the most miserable life possible?
Exactly. Yeah. No thanks. Carol, do you have anything to add to your story from last time?
No, because it's the same story,
Do you have the percolator nearby?
I actually have 2 pots. A smaller version of the percolator.
Okay.
Whoops, camera. And then that's during the week, and then on the weekends, this big guy. And no, nothing's changed. I still, the Italian family with the coffee and brewing all day, all night, even till 11 o'clock at night. I love it. I don't know. I can't go without it. And I grew up on Dunkin' Donuts coffee. In Connecticut, Dunkin' Donuts is really big. And before they were selling the beans, we would buy them already ground. And after, I have to tell you, Nick, after our first tasting, I said to my husband, I don't think I can drink Dunkin' Donuts coffee anymore. Yeah, really. I said, it's like unbelievable, like how stupid I am. Like I thought Dunkin' Donuts was so good, I don't eat donuts, but I drink their coffee. And it's like impossible to go back now. So
look at here.
Your coffee's amazing.
Changing the world like you want.
Yeah.
All right. So unless anybody else has any more questions for Nick, I have one to close us out. The floor is yours if you want to ask Kasim or Bruce a question, or Carol or Regina, whatever. Anybody? Sorry, Mel couldn't join us today. I was going to say tonight, but today. So Nick, when I wine taste, you clear your palate in between. I noticed that we didn't do that here. Like you'll take a cracker or whatever to try to change. Are there any foods that you would recommend, or is that a thing where you go, okay, this coffee might be better with a ham and cheese biscuit, this one might be better with a chicken biscuit, or this might be better with eggs? Any kind of relationship there?
Yeah. Another question I was ashamed to ask.
Yeah.
That was another.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think Regina was going to ask that too. I beat her to it.
Oh, right on. Yeah. So, I think if you're doing a tasting like this where you have 3 coffees, you really want to taste the unique and inherent flavors in each. When I'm tasting coffee, sometimes when I'm tasting upwards of 20 coffees, it takes a lot of mental processing, especially if they're all from the same country or even all from the same farm. So I don't use anything. I just hit it. If nothing, I use a little bit of warm tap water. I've tried using sparkling water, but I've noticed that for some reason, plain sparkling water changes the way acidity feels in my mouth, and I don't like it. It throws me off. Now, if you're just doing a casual coffee tasting with your friends at home with a little bit of Utopian Coffee, some sort of lightly sweetened shortbread cookie might be a good option. Nothing too overly sweet or overly sour. Of course, some sort of cracker is going to be an awesome choice. But yeah, it's hard because coffee is such a powerful flavor. And yet it's such a powerful coffee flavor always, but the unique little inherent characteristics are kind of hard to pick up on. So if you add anything to your palate, there's a possibility that you might miss out on those. But with wine, wine is always, especially a good hearty red, can cut through almost any flavor, chocolate, anything. But if you're tasting with your friends, dude, throw some chocolate in there, get some shortbread cookies. I don't know if there's any perfect way to do it, but yeah, I think coffee is just take it how you want.
There you go.
It's choose your own adventure always.
All right, so tell us again the names of the 3 coffees that we tried today.
Yeah, so we did. The first coffee was the Mercedes Minga Lot 1. The second was Mercedes Minga Lot 2. And you can remember Lot 2 as it's the Bourbon variety. So if you look on our website, you'll see the varieties of the Bourbon. And then the third one is Los Santos. And then Emily plugged the Oscar Nunez. And I think what we're going to do is, if you want to buy that coffee, because that is such a special coffee on a heart issue for us, I think we're going to do some sort of deal. I'll let Emily hit it up in the chat or email you guys, and you can send it out. But we'll do buy one get one half off or buy one get one free for that coffee for a week or something. But also 2 shameless plugs, because I know all of you love talking about coffee and learning about it. If you ever want to know something about coffee, I write all our Utopian blogs on our website, and I'm always writing about the coffees we're releasing, really going into detail. If there's anything you want to learn, you might find it on there. And if there's something missing, you can email Emily or myself. It's just Nick and Emily at utopiancoffee.com, and give me ideas. I love writing blog posts on there. And then the other thing is, man, over the next couple months, we're going to have just some insane coffees being released. Some from Burundi, which Burundi's a super small country, but producing some coffee that I look forward to all year to drinking. Some coffee from Ethiopia, of course, which is the motherland of coffee. And I have been the coffees I've been selecting from Ethiopia, I'm just like, they're mind-blowingly good. And then Mexico, I love Mexican coffee. I think Mexican coffee is the premier everyday drinking coffee. It's chocolatey, it's nutty, it's super rich, and we're gonna have just the most outstanding Mexican coffee. I just don't think there's another roaster in the USA that's gonna have some of these coffees like we are. So just keep your eyes peeled. If you have Instagram, follow us on there. We're on Facebook, of course, and then always check our website. We always have really cool stuff. So yeah, thanks for having me again. I love doing this. Sure. Anytime you guys want to, we'll toss some fun coffees in.
All right. Well, before we leave, I want to get you and Kasim on the screen together so I can get a screenshot so that Utopian Coffee can have a photo with the Utopia band member.
Cool.
All right. Let's see. Let me see. Well, I'm trying here. Dun, dun, dun.
Hey.
All right, there we go.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Nick, for doing this today. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and,
thanks.
And really informative too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is what I love. This is like my dream job. So anytime I get to share my dream with other people, that's like what I live for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you. Appreciate everything, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody.
No
Thank
problem.
you.